Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday evening. Let's see. Konnichiwa. I think everyone is getting ready to get on. So a beautiful welcome, a beautiful happy Tuesday evening to you. I know that there's a little bit of a delay always on over to YouTube and Facebook. So we're going to give it a little bit of time for you guys to all log on. I see some people are getting on already. And I know I have a lovely guest on here today, and he's getting it shared on over. I'm getting it shared onto different platforms as well so that we can make sure we get as many of you into this amazing, fabulous conversation. We're going to be talking about STEM, pathways to STEM. How do we STEM our life? STEM, right? We're going to be talking about education, the STEM program in education. But how do we create new pathways? How do we do certain things with education? And it's really important right now because we've got COVID-19 going on, and COVID-19 has increased a lot of awareness towards a lot of different things, but especially it's putting a highlight on education. So we want to talk about education. Let's talk about where are we at spiritually, where are we at emotionally, where are we at scientifically, where are we at in all different ways and platforms with education. And as I believe that he's kind of ready here, and I'm kind of ready and got some stuff shared on over to some different platforms as well. So all of you guys, if you feel this is something that you want other people to join, please like and follow it and share it out, start watch parties, and let's get this conversation going here. A beautiful evening to you. My lovely guest here today and co-host this evening is the author of The Blank Check, Dr. Erin Smith. And welcome, Erin, your beautiful friend. It's great to have you here and to be part of this and to be sharing your knowledge about STEM, right, and the different programs. And you wrote the Blank Check, so I'm going to let you talk a little bit, if you don't mind, inform us all a little bit about yourself. I mean, I got to know you and know about you and what you do administratively as a teacher as well, and through the STEM program. But you also wrote a very interesting book called The Blank Check. And what would each one of you out there do to reset the system if you had a blank check for education? So, Erin, I'll let you introduce yourself a little bit and just tell us, the basis of what you do with STEM and The Blank Check.
Well, thanks for having me, Jessica. I really appreciate the opportunity to be with you tonight and just share with your fans a little bit about my dream. If you ask my kids, they will probably tell you I'm horrific at telling bad dad jokes. So I kind of put that to the side. But professionally, I couldn't support myself that way. So I had to go into education. And I love education because this is where I feel like I'm a kid myself, but also feel like that it's my swing zone. And been in education for over 2 decades, started off as a math teacher. And through this journey, I've been able to see and do a lot of really cool things. I've been in a place called Aviation Academy for now 11 years. And this is where I've understood how business ties in with schools. And it's important that we really understand not only the needs of the business, but also how businesses can support the schools, because we can't live one without the other. We have to make sure that everybody's working together, because when that happens, we are actually able to create a better economy and a better opportunity and a better quality of life for our children. And that's where Blank Check came around, was from the idea of having the ability of to doing things without limitations, hence the name.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I mean, I love having talked to you, gotten to know you, knowing your energy, knowing the different things you do. It's amazing to see what you've done with the STEM programs, as well as how you've brought it around to the Blank Check. And I think, if you think about it, what would each one of you all do out there if you did have a blank check, right? If any of you are noticing problems, excuse me real quick, because I'm trying to watch the Facebook feed. If you guys out there are watching and you're noticing problems with Facebook, let me know, because right here, I think on Erin's side and my side, it looks okay. But I'm noticing that on Facebook, it's kind of distorted on the color. So type in, let us know, please. We are using StreamYard. If you're on StreamYard, please go ahead, give your permissions. I think it's looking good. I'm seeing some heart emojis flying now. So I think everything's figured out here. we're using StreamYard. So as you guys text in and type in, please give your permissions to Facebook and everything else so that we can grab you. We're going to grab your comments and be putting them up. And so we already got people saying that it looks good here. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We appreciate that. But, as we're getting back to what you're talking about, it's very interesting because STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, right? And a lot of people know that. And there's a lot of people that don't know that. But we were doing a play on words today as well about how do you STEM to new pathways, right? How do people STEM through education to new pathways? And there's so many things that as children, our youth of this world, our future of this world, there are different ways and different formats. And like you said, bringing in the businesses as well, so that we have a chance to make a new collective endeavor together, right? Mm-hmm. The youth, the parents, businesses, and how do we really empower things? And if you did have a blank check and you can incorporate STEM, or you can incorporate metaphysical, spiritual awareness or grounding, you can create a much more collaborated, stronger individual. And that's kind of what we wanted to bring up the conversation with you all to this evening. So all of you that are out there, type in your comments, type in different thoughts, ideas, and what would you do if you guys right now that are watching, what would you do if you had a blank check, especially with COVID-19, to maybe help rewrite the education system? Because we are in a pinnacle place. We're looking at virtual, we're looking at so many different things. But Erin, what are some of the different feedback you've gotten since being the author of the blank check, as well as working with STEM, that you have seen that have brought education more into from your start in education to where things are now today, that you have been able to see new pathways create, mm-hmm. right? Where mm-hmm. people have been able to STEM new pathways. The youth have created, because you've already seen a generation go through.
Yep. And it really depends on the community. It depends on the beholder. And I remind everybody that just because you have the ability to have a blank check doesn't mean that you have the ability to make the vision become realistic. You have to have buy-in from everybody. You have to not only take pride in what you do, but you have to plant seeds that you know are going to take time to build and really cultivate over the years. Blank check is more than that. It is really a promise. It's a hope to show people what we can do. When we live in a society that talks about the things that we can't do and negativity and this and that, I'm not about that. That's not who I am. That's not what my spirit says. My spirit says we need to really raise each other up and build each other along the way, so that as you grow, other people grow along the way.
And it's true. How have you seen that through STEM? People grow new ways and grow along the way. Through you implementing something like STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics into educational programs.
So I'll give you a perfect example. About 5 or 6 years ago, one of my seniors, his name was Mark, and he was just dropping, if I can say this, like a dead weight. He just didn't care about school anymore, but yet he was such a whiz with computers. And this is one of the times where I sat down with him. I said, why are you doing what you're doing, but you're acing Cisco, you're acing the computer classes? He says, I'm bored. I don't care about school anymore. And I said, I'll make a deal with you. If you will get your grades back up, I'll find an internship. No matter where it is, I will get you an internship. And he looked at me. I said, yeah. I said, don't ask for money, but I will try to find you a job. So he held up his end of the bargain. I'm like, oh, great, I got to find him a job. And thankfully, I called up one of my business partners at NASA, and I explained to them, I said, here's the story. This kid is incredibly gifted. His grades don't reflect who he is as a person, but I'm asking as a personal favor, give him the opportunity to show you what you got. And they used him to create a brand new website for high school students. It's a thing called Hunch now, High Schools United for the Need to Create Hardware. And basically this website is used to show what products kids are building for the space station, whether they're actually creating dishes that will go on board to be tested out, or for us building lockers that will carry stowage, building all kinds of prototypes and stuff. And he created, if you will, the backbone or the initial version of this website. And not only did he graduate and finally got his act together, they were so impressed with him, they kept him on board part-time. And
That's
that says a
awesome.
lot. It is, because they instantly fell in love with him. They loved his work. He was a true visionary, and they found a way to keep him. So for the next couple of years, while he was attending community college, he still was working his side hustle, if you will, working at NASA. How many teenagers can say that? And
Not many.
every now, no. And see, that's what STEM does. It brings several industries to life. It creates real life situations. It creates opportunities, but it also builds in creativity and problem solving all at once.
Yeah, and I mean, and yes, okay, that was an associate of yours, the connection at NASA, but it's not just because that kid, that youth, was in your program. STEM ends up having these connections around, the country as well with other STEM programs. So it's not just because that was in your school and in your program, but places like NASA, there's engineering places. There's also trade schools that take a special interest in STEM programs. And this is where we're talking about creating new pathways, because maybe somebody that might get lost in the mainstream of the traditional, nothing wrong with the traditional education system, but somebody might get lost in the traditional mainstream of the educational system, could actually get into science, technology, engineering, mathematics through the STEM program and realize, hey, I don't just have to be a mechanic. I can actually start to design cars. I can do things in a different format. I could be a diesel mechanic and create $100,000 K plus income a year and have a much more successful life pathway. And I know you talked about, this brings in, I remember you talked about different pipelines, right? So we have different pipelines, and you're saying that we have, go ahead. I know you're ready to say it.
So no, but you're right, because to me, STEM represents opportunities, especially for those that traditionally may not have had those opportunities before. STEM is not necessarily a four-year college. And back in my day, that's what people were preaching. Everybody says you have to do this venue. STEM can be a technician. And believe it or not, like 80% of those jobs, those two-year technical professions, are making just as much, if not more, than the four-year degrees. And see,
Right.
that is phenomenal, because those that may not have a true interest, if you will, in school, or those that have disabilities in one area but are gifted in another, or those that are underrepresented, like our women in STEM, or minorities, or bilingual speaking students, they have a golden opportunity to get the same quality of life. It's just allowing them to explore that pathway and to find out what they want to do in life.
Well, I like that it has different options for interest. So it's not just your basic, there's a lot of hands-on learning through STEM. And that's one of the great things about like your book, The Blank Check, right? So with the blank check, it's also like, okay, what kind of different skill sets or different things would people put in? I always say like, hey, we were not necessarily taught in school, in whether it be in elementary, middle school, or high school, to write our own checks. We weren't taught to balance our accounts. We weren't taught about taxes. And the reality is, once you get out of high school, for the most part, everyone's going to be paying taxes. And we don't know how to be filing taxes. We don't know how to be balancing budgets. We don't know how to figure out which should be the best toilet paper besides whatever we see on a commercial to be purchasing. But yet through something like STEM, it does bring in a lot of skill set as well. So if you guys had a blank check, I'm waiting for the comments. What would you be implementing, or how would you change the school systems, or what would you add to what's already there to enhance it? As well as energetically, is it Montessori types of ideas from Montessori schools that you guys would be bringing in? Is it energy work? Is it emotional work that you would want to have there to balance these children out so that we be a bigger, brighter person, right, in our future? So that's kind of the conversation we wanted to bring up with you all today and get you all inspired as well. Because Erin and I take this seriously, and we're working on programs as well in different ways, in different formats of how does reality of the world and our education, where we're in a beautiful capsule, kindergarten through 12th grade, might not seem like it when you're going through a kindergarten through 12th grade, but you're in a beautiful capsule until you get out of 12th grade. And then you're either going off to college or you are in the workforce, right? And so how do we now create this beautiful capsule in a new way so that when you come out of this capsule, you have new, just like Gilbert and Jen are saying, new life skills. And how does STEM kind of, we talked about a few ways, but as you've seen STEM create these new pathways, how do you see it enhancing life skills of students?
Well, number one, it allows kids to be creative again. Sadly, it's been taken away from the curriculum and for one reason or another. But, STEM enables kids to be kids again. It's like having a playground, if you will, where they can explore and try new things and put things together, assemble. And that's what we did when we were in kindergarten, is we used our five senses and our little bit of curiosity to see what this thing can do, how can it go. And STEM does that. It's a bigger play yard for us to be able to do things. And Gilbert hit the nail on the head. It develops life skills along the way, things that you can explore, things that you can anticipate, a little bit of understanding and reasoning, things that sometimes aren't necessarily straightforward in a curriculum. You kind of pick up behind the scenes, and it just adds to your cachet of things along the journey.
I would agree with that. I mean, I was raised on a farm and ranch as well. My father's a medical doctor, physician. So we were always talking about anatomy. We're always reading encyclopedias. We're always out on the tractor. We're repairing the tractor, take it apart to fix it, right? If it breaks down, baling the hay, working with cattle, having to do, you're watching surgery, doing surgery on cattle, because this is what a lot of people do, because you're trying to be good stewards of the animals and take care of them if they had a hernia. Assisting them with birthing and with calves, if they had dystocia issues. So maybe, the math 2 + 2 is not always exciting, but when you are putting in the life skills of let's figure out the budget because we have to pay the feed, we have to do this, we have to do that, etc. You also have the tractor that broke down. So we have to subtract these repairs and the diesel fuel and everything else. Plus then you have now you have a calf that you've been able to sell. So you've made this money. And before you know it, you got to see the whole life journey of what it took to the output financially to the income. And was it really there? Is it worth the value? Then you're getting taught analytical skills, even in the medical practice, all these different things that you implement. So in a sense, we had our own little STEM program before STEM was really, because I'm 43, STEM wasn't in school. I would have loved it if it would have been there, because those would have been the classes I would want to take, because it really does give you that hands-on experience. And it makes things what I love about STEM is it makes things a lot more relevant. So you can actually reach out and touch it and pull things in and feel it and know it. And it really enforces it so that you do get that shot with NASA, that possibility, that opportunity. And then when you get that shot, you really take it seriously. You honor it. You're a lot more grounded as well when you can relate things to real life. I think we're not living in the dream world, although yes, who doesn't love to live in the dream world? But there's a lot of reality that comes in. So I think that, it is important that we do touch on that. How have you seen, since you've been in, let's just call it quote unquote, the streamline education field, right? The regular, what most people know education, and then being a part of the STEM education type of program. How would you say, and I know that a lot of this, before I say this, I know a lot of this has to do with each individual child, first of all. I know it has to do with their home environment, but on the whole, how have you seen maybe how their stability emotionally, spiritually, mentally, maybe is a little bit different versus between the two different educational models?
For me, number one is when I see kids involved in more STEM things, like you said, it's more hands-on. So the intuitive part of us wants to really just dive right in. And that's what STEM enables us to do, is to build products, to test things out, to learn through failure, if you will. And that's the part that gives kids confidence to take it to the next level. And I tell kids all the time, there's nothing wrong with failing. We fail all the time. We failed. Think about it. We failed early on because we couldn't walk. But did we give up? Nope. We just kept going and going. And that's what truly STEM should be teaching all of us indirectly, is not only the
Right.
skill, but the ability to stay confident, stay strong, and persevere. And you think about how many great entrepreneurs around the world who really have used one form of STEM or another to build their businesses the way they are. You know,
Mhm.
it's because of their resiliency and their passion for their work. And that's what STEM produces, is the passion and the fuel that just takes their learning and their love to the next level.
Well, I love that you're saying it takes their learning and their love to the next level, because I think that that's something very much so that's one of those grounding and basis of our internal environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, because we see a product. And I have nothing against the traditional education system, because that is what's out there, right? And that's what we're utilizing. And there's always ways, and that's why I love the book, The Blank Check, because it's not just about STEM. It's like, if you got a blank check, how would you rewrite? How would you implement it to create a much better, cohesive, fabulous educational system for our future, our youth, right? And their future, which is our future as well. And it's great that you bring this and you kind of bring up all these different ideas, but it's fabulous because, like, you see a product via STEM. I love it, because if you're building something, you have students that have worked on the airplanes. When you're
Mm-hmm.
building stuff, you actually see a product and you're seeing an end product. When you're just doing the math and you're just doing 3 + 3 = 10, or you're doing geometry, exactly 3 + 3 = 10. They didn't click that it was 9, that it was 6, that it was whatever it
Mm-hmm.
should have been, because they weren't paying attention. Was it mathematics, meaning addition? Was it actually multiplication at that point? We kind of just get lost in the streamline of it because we're not having an extra added value at that point. To a
Yeah.
certain point, it doesn't matter. So we're not saying, oh, that was 3 + 3, and I said 10, and it was just 3 + 3 = 6, and I put 9 because I was just thinking it's multiplication. Because at some point we're not excited about what the reward is, and we can't see our high school diploma means college diploma, or we can't really see that it means like some kind of skilled diploma or value that's bringing our income in for our future. But when you have something like STEM that's a hands-on, it really does start to show you what's your value for the work you're putting in. What are things that you receive or create, like you said, and you bring in that creativity, I think, and it brings in that inspiration. And I love how you said it brings in confidence. And when we can become more confident, our internal environment then becomes a lot more balanced. We're not as insecure. We don't have the
Mm-hmm.
insecurities, which keeps us from maybe lying so much in life, cheating in life, and doing certain things, because we're now finding ourselves and we're much more secure, which is actually here in the next show I'll be on, is the curiosity theory, which we're going to talk about. Why do people lie? And that's going to be, as soon as we're off here, I'm going to jump on the curiosity theory and I'll be sending it through Enlightened Circles. But we have less lying, cheating, everything else, because you really are, through an educational system, bringing in that wholeness of the internal environment and the strength within. And I think that that's something beautiful through all what you and all teachers do. When you really step forward with heart and with soul and trying to do something for those children of the future, you're helping create the internal environments within each one of them, working your beautiful magic in your own energetic ways, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
have you had many, this is a question I've heard come out from people before, and they say, oh, STEM, this is great, or education, this is great, but this came up in a conversation last night. We were talking about how there's this fear of some teachers don't necessarily want to go back to working, and exposure. So we brought up your book about the blank check. And so what would you do, right? And they were talking about different ideas, instead of maybe having where children are rotating classes like they normally always did, especially when we're talking middle school and high school. Elementary, you usually stay in that same classroom all day.
Yep.
But when you are doing middle school and high school, why not more so have teachers rotate into classrooms? Because now you've contained exposure instead of having all the kids. Because if you have like 500 students and they're doing A-Day, B-Days now, instead you're having 250 rotate around through that whole entire campus. But if you had maybe a group of kids, 25 people, however many in a classroom, stay in that classroom And for the first hour, whatever, the English teachers are there and they teach them what they need to be teaching them. Then you have the teacher, the science teacher rotate in or whatever. So they were incorporating the blank check idea of how to make it less exposure, yet to be able to be there for the students in order, because there's a lot that you pick up as far as like learning disabilities, emotional incapacities, or issues that might be going on at home that you get to recognize as teachers that online we don't get to see. So how do you see that as a teacher, and as far as like utilizing STEM and or blank check programs, especially now because COVID-19, we've kids this whole entire semester were at home. College, from kindergarten, elementary, special ed, everyone was at home. So there might be some things that were lost in the wayside. And how do we kind of bring ourselves back in that, do you think, if you had a blank check?
So you bring up one of the worries I think a lot of us as educators and parents alike worry about is what happens when you have children who are at home that, number one, aren't able to get the opportunity to learn through a digital divide, or much less, they don't have a stable environment where they're either distracted or they're very apprehensive and they're not able to really soak in the lessons. The first thing we have to do is to make sure that we have a solidified relationship with the children. Kids don't care about what you know until they know that you care. And until that is established, and until you get that grounded and well-rooted, it is not going to be as successful as what we can truly make it to be. And to me, that's what part of blank check is about, is not only balancing their socioeconomic status and balancing their academics, but making sure they have a psychological and opportunity to balance themselves physically, metaphysically, and well as they are fully embraced and loved from all levels. When you do that, I think you fully have optimized every capacity in the child. And that way, everything becomes full throttle, full steam ahead. Having kids in distance learning, there's pros and cons to it, but it boils back to really four things. Number one is, how is the teacher preparing the lesson? Because the lesson in the classroom is so much different than online. And you're right, you're going to pick up social cues, you're going to pick up little verbal cues, physical cues that teachers have not necessarily been trained to see over a camera. It takes a very acute eye to pick up those little subtleties. And then while you're doing that, is you have to find out, how are we delivering it effectively to the kids? Just putting in a video for an hour and a half is not a good thing to do. You have to have feedback. You have to have engagement. You have to make sure that the kids don't understand what you want, but you also have to understand what they need. And it's a balance. And once you can put all that together, then I think you're really going to create a new level of learning. And distance learning is a form of learning, just like hybrid learning, just like you said, having some of the kids come in and rotate through. It's going to be a new challenge of ways this year.
Right.
But I also think at the same side, you're going to find new opportunities at the same time.
Yeah, I really like how you're discussing about how, kids don't really, it's not important to them to know what you know. They just need to know that you care and that you're there. And that they're you being engaged with them, because to me, that's like in what I do with Enlightened Circles, right? And what a lot of the people that are out here that listen to, what we all have come to realize is that we all engage energetically in some way or some form. And when you don't have that energetic engagement, where our protons and neutrons are not doing that exchange, whether we want to talk it in physics format, whether we want to talk it in energy formats, whether we want to talk about it in emotional face, right? Because we make faces at each other, and that means I'm engaging with you. And so when we don't have these different energetic formats of engagement, we become disengaged. And it's really important that you said that. And so it's really neat that you're saying that, is that they're not worried to know that we're the specialists, that we know what we're talking about. They just want to know that you care. Once we know you care, once we know you're engaged with us as a child, then I'm willing to listen to you. And then if you already have a teacher who's willing to teach as well as inspire my intuition, we can really, like you said, take it levels beyond and create these new pathways. And we can really not just STEM like through science, technology, engineering, and math, but we really can STEM to new pathways in life and create new pathways for ourselves. And I think that this is something important. We're talking about education, we're talking about for children, but this is definitely something that's important for each one of us as adults, right? So how would you say as parents, guardians, or as business and society that we can incorporate STEM into building new pathways in life for us as well, not just the youth?
Well, number one, STEM is the ability to become the catalyst in the fourth industrial revolution. And that's the place that we're in right now. If you don't like the job that you're in, you have the ability to change it. It really sees that as the driving vehicle. STEM as a parent, a lot of times parents don't understand what it can do, but it allows them to get back in the garage, or if you will, it allows them to get on the computer and create programming, coding, all kinds of things to develop AI. It also allows us as parents to give our kids a chance to do career exploration and really see some things that otherwise you're not going to see traditionally. How many times can we go on the internet and sit down with our children and say, well, let's see what a vet does? We can see Dr. Pol, for example, we could see other things, but really there are trained veterinarians who deal with prosthetics and dealing with, let's say, sea turtles that have lost a flipper. So that not only involves the training of becoming a vet, but there's actually STEM involved right there, and actually having to rebuild a prosthetic flipper and to rehabilitate them. That's bringing in multiple concepts and skills into one area. And it shows the kids that it can be done. It's just opening that door to imagination and just inviting new pathways to come into your area.
Yeah, I love that it doesn't just show the kids, it's showing us in business, it's showing us in different industries that there's more than one way to do things. And I love that it's empowering, let's say, businesses to have this connection with students at a much younger age versus somebody who's in college doing an internship, or a pre-vet student coming to do that, or a veterinarian that's like a kid in vet school who's doing an internship. This is engaging different generations at a much younger age to be a part of this and inspiration, so that therefore there is this lunge forward. And like I said, once we get that lunge forward with these new pathways in life, it really does. I know for me, being able to go with my father to the hospital when I was little, because it's a completely different world than what it is now, right? But I would hear that phone ring at the middle of the night, or I'd hear that phone ring at 9:30 at night or 10 o'clock at night or whatever. And I would just jump out of bed, throw on my clothes, and, I'd go running to go be able to go to the hospital, to be at the ER with my dad. And sometimes I'd be hanging out with the nurses if he had to run into emergency surgery. It was not daycare, right? It was small rural town America
right.
as well. And this is what family physicians used to be able to do. And this is what practice was as well. You see patients during the day, he'd get called for an emergency. He runs and goes, takes out an appendix or delivers a baby or does some orthopedic surgery, everything else. That's what family practice used to be about. But for me to be able to be around it, to see it, my anatomy classes is when I was a little girl, and my dad would be seeing patients at the hospital, and I'm standing there with a radiologist in the big x-ray room. It's digital now, right? But we used to have the big lighted up wall with just the metal things. And so here comes all the x-rays, and I'm learning what's the radio, what's the ulnus, and I'm having my anatomy lessons, and I'm like 5 years old. And I loved it. So that's what I love about what you're sharing, is you're saying kids are able to get engaged in these since a much younger age and have career exploration. So we start to know what we like or don't do. I've chosen not to practice medicine. I was enthralled with it, love it. And I wanted to be a healer in that way, in that format. But now my life also took a different turn where I don't practice traditional Western medicine. I do the spiritual healing and wellness. And that's something I was always involved with when I was young as well. But I had the confidence because of exposure in order to still go to medical school, become a physician. I did animal science as my bachelor's. So it's a little bit of everything. And I had that confidence now to still kind of in people's mind walk away from something and do something. It's to me, it's still similar. Healing is healing, right? But it's working in a metaphysical world. It's working on our mind, body, and spirit all collectively in a holistic format versus just in allopathic medicine. And I think it's definitely been because of exposure, like what you're saying. So all of you that are out there, how many of you have gone ahead and switched careers or done stuff? And it's also been because you were inspired because you had exposure to it. Type in the comments, let us know. We love to hear from you. We'd love to share some of your things up here. Or if your children have been exposed because you've exposed them to new programs, new ways, and they maybe had a career idea or a drive for something, but because of exposure, maybe they had that switch and that flip. And now they're just so happy. Like, I love what I do. And Aaron can tell by the way you're talking, you love what you do, right?
Oh,
you
I
went
have
to
fun, yes.
in the book. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
What are some other strengths that you see are new ideas, maybe besides STEM out there in the educational world that are here to, like you say, collaborate our different generations, bring them together, that are there to strengthen us as society, but through our youth as well, maybe?
So one thing I see coming down the pipeline is the increased use of AI, artificial intelligence. Because when you think about AI, a lot of people don't know what it truly can do. But not only can it replicate thoughts and accelerate patterns and hopefully cures of things, but really it can trigger specific laser focus concepts for people based upon their own skills and unique ideas. And that's a great way to bridge the learning from crayon to career. When you think about it, the workers in the workforce today had a much different teaching style than what the children are seeing now. And through AI, the algorithms that could be developed allow the worker to get the same maximized opportunity just as if the child in the classroom gets the same opportunity. It's just a different venue of learning. And I see that. I see virtual reality coming in and replacing training. Not only is it cheaper, but you can actually accelerate your learning because you have the ability to review it. You can sit down with your instructor and see what's going right, what's going wrong, and kind of get the play-by-play after, if you will, a football game is over and you're reviewing video going into the next game. That is the highest level of learning possible, is when you're seeing, active, doing, and really resonating to a scenario where it's authentic and just as real as it can be.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing, because I think, when we're talking about something, I think that, like I said, when I was in school, STEM would have been like one of those, wow, this is amazing and this is the newest thing. But I think it's also nice to talk about, okay, now we've got STEM, and now STEM is a proven program that's been out there that is not incorporated everywhere. And I know that that's something that you do work on, trying to get STEM into new communities and new ways. But it is nice to know what also is out there circulating, because as STEM comes in, obviously we're always readapting everything that we do in life. So it's always good to know and hear what else is kind of possibly coming in, like you said, virtual reality or other tools. And I think that those of us maybe who either don't have children, we're grandparents, we're a little far out, but we're still part of society, and we have youth coming up that are going to be part of this workforce, part of this community as well. I think it's a great way to always keep in touch and kind of know, so you have that communication and assistance strengthening as well. So what were some other, I know you guys, a lot of people usually get a little bit more engaged and start asking questions and talking. So if you guys have any questions for Aaron while he's on here, please bring up the questions. If you guys had an invested interest in STEM and you just didn't have somebody to talk to maybe prior, or didn't have as much knowledge base about it, and you want to ask him questions about STEM or how it relates, please type in the comments so we can share it. And we have a beautiful, amazing professional here who's inspired and inspires other students how to incorporate education in different formats into life. So let's tap into this knowledge while we have him here, definitely. But what are some other things you would say would be important to share this evening while we're out here discussing these topics and these issues, Aaron?
So, we talked about the academic side of STEM, but one thing I think it's important for people to understand is STEM allows us to change our mindsets to things. And when I say it changes our mindset, it allows us to become open and more growth minded, if you will. Whereas before, sometimes in a traditional classroom, you just become fixed and closed minded because you think that's the only way to learn. An open mindset allows you to receive everything at the same time, and you pick and choose your pathway, not only of the way you want to learn, but hopefully the pathway that you want to choose down in life. And that's so important because you don't want to go anywhere being miserable. You want to go somewhere where you feel valued. Number two, you feel like you're a solid contribution to it, but you also feel like you're an innovator. You're doing something not only that's going to maybe help a company or help a life, but also something that you feel very proud of. And when you triangulate those three things, it is such a phenomenal feeling. And seeing it in the classroom to me is just as amazing as seeing an employee who's been working there for 20 years with a smile on their face showing you their new prototype. You just can't duplicate that.
It's finding that beautiful nexus, right?
It is. It's kind of utopic in a way. It's really seeing all those moments of work and due diligence and just being put together, and just it's right there for the moment, and you just soak it all in.
I love that you're bringing up the happiness that it brings as well, because they say, and I know it's a saying and I believe it and I live it, thankfully, that when you like what you're doing, it's really not work, right? It's really not work when you really enjoy what you're doing. And like when you're talking about somebody who's taking that prototype out and they have that smile on their face, it's like that reward system. And you just really take pride in all the right ways energetically in what you've done and what you've performed. And I mean, I love what I do. I'm happy with everything I do. I'm so grateful for my journey. Doesn't matter if the journey was hard. It doesn't matter if how fast it was, how slow it was. It's a happy place to be when you get where you want to be and where you deserve to be. And as you find your pathway in life, right? And so as you find that pathway in life, you find that pathway to a beautiful happiness that really is a combination because of education. It's a combination because of the finances that come in. It's a combination because of your happiness and joy with what you're doing out there, right? And I think it's just great that you're bringing that in and you're reminding us about the happiness, because that's what comes out. We have a question from Bernadette, and she's saying, can this be inserted into public schools, or is it best at charter school or private schools? Good question, Bernadette. Thank you for asking.
Oh, that's a phenomenal question. The honest answer is it can be embedded anywhere. It can be embedded in homeschooling. It can be inserted into private Montessori. It depends on how the model wants to get set up within the school, how the administration and the staff buy into it. You don't want just a class here or a class here that's doing it. You want it to be implemented with fidelity, because then that creates the culture. And you know how it is when you walk into a great place, you feel different. You feel warm, you feel welcome. And that's what STEM can do to some schools, is it literally can transform the feel of how kids interact with teachers, and the pride that's just buzzing when you walk in, when you see the student works and you see the certifications on the board, and that's what it boils down to. Anywhere and everywhere. It just depends on the beauty of the beholder. Great question, Bernadette.
So stemming off of that question, not to use pun on play on words, right? But really stemming off that question.
Keep them coming.
But honestly, off of that, like, okay, how do you get your districts, your school districts, or to become aware or to have the interest in it? Like, if we are somebody in the community, we think this would be great for our community, a rural community, a flyover state, wherever it might be. What are some kinds of things that we as society could do as well to help bring the awareness to it?
I think number one is schools shouldn't be afraid of inviting your communities in for an honest conversation. And you lay the groundwork and you say, guys, look, we as a school, we don't know the answers to this. And we need your help in making our children successful. We're going to do everything we can, but we have to build a common dream. We have to make sure we're on the same wavelength. We have to understand that we're going to create a vision and a plan to really become the next level. And when you start to do that and you start with little takeaway items, then that's when you're going to start to see a little bit of ownership taking place, but you got to keep revisiting it. You got to keep not harping on it, but you've got to keep it at the forefront. What gets measured gets done. But if you focus on that and you keep true and stay to that compass, it will happen over time. And the best part about STEM is it doesn't have to be the same model as the one right down the street or the same one in the same state. It should be built towards what your community needs. So if it is more so of a manufacturing area, then maybe you as a school system, teachers, as a business, maybe y'all want to hone in some of the resources and even assist the teachers in showing where additive manufacturing can be integrated into the lessons. If you're an area that is more of a high-tech area and maybe you're focused in on flying, have some of the professionals come in and talk to you about drones and aviation so that it plants seeds for them to become future drone pilot operators and skyport managers and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if it's a medical area or something, like you're around the Mayo Clinic, or even if you're a rural place, right, that's has medical near the school or like something of the sorts, then obviously, then that's where. Is it something where? How does it naturally, when you've seen it come into different districts? Because I know you've worked with different districts. And I know you've worked with different schools around the country as well, and even some possible global STEM implementations, right? So how do we go by it of bringing that interest a little bit stronger, right? Is it a political system that you've seen it kind of have to, does it have to be going to school boards? Is it something that people reach out to senators? Is it something, how do these kind of get implemented for those of us who really don't know, right? But we'd love to see it.
So I tell everybody, if you want to start, pick up the phone. It can be as simple as that. And you start off with the low-hanging fruit to see what things you can do. Can you help write a small $1,000 grant to help get extra lab equipment in there? And then from there, you then start saying, well, what else can we do? What else can we build? What else can we dream? And as you continue to get higher up from the lower hanging fruit, that's when you start to talk to your board members. I'm talking about as a community, as the businesses talk to the school boards, or what are some policies that we can change at the district level to help increase opportunities for our kids. And as it begins to build momentum and begin opportunities, that's when the school board members and the city officials can work with the community to help legislators at the state level to possibly rewrite or build legislation in to create more pockets of, let's just say, internships, or more pockets for grants for teachers to get better training in areas that otherwise that just wouldn't get funded, or new lab equipment, who knows, a new STEM center, and it's just a constant buildup. But you have to start with the things that you can grab first, and then just keep working your way up, keep building the wish list, and just keep making it happen. While you're doing that, reach out with your network outside of your community. LinkedIn is a great place. Twitter's a great place. Facebook is a great place, and ask them, how did you get that? Or what are you doing with this? And people love sharing, especially when they know that your heart is in the right mindset for children. They won't mind sharing you those secrets that they've learned. And, through that process, it could save you a lot of time and hopefully save you a lot of dollars along the way.
Well, I know that a lot of these different things that one of the main things I like that you said and is attracted as well is that it doesn't always have, STEM's not always built the same way for every program, and it doesn't have to be the same thing at each school district or each school. It can be adjusted to each community and each area. So if even somebody's out there doing what I do, spiritual healing, engineering, wellness, there's probably a way to factor that into STEM as well, or programs, because once there's a program, and I know that Erin and I are working on some of those programs ourselves actually, and trying to bring that forward, because there is positive communication as well. There's positive life skills through things like meditation, spiritual work, positive outlook, optimism, right? And as you do that and you can bring in that balance to people, that we do become much more successful through engineering, through science, technology, engineering, mathematics, through life skills, right? So that's some of the things that we're excited to talk to you all about next week as well on Migrate Your Mindset. Next Wednesday, Erin will be my guest, and hopefully Jamie Smale from the UK, my co-host, will be on and being able to join us then. So if you all have liked this as well, Bernadette was saying great ideas. Are there any schools in New Mexico that have inquired about the STEM programs? I do know that there are schools in New Mexico that do implement STEM. I don't remember all of them, but I do know that there are some here in New Mexico. You might be aware of, Erin, or not. But is there a place that people can go to find out like what schools have STEM in their local communities in case they're interested in their children going to those type of schools?
So I guess, first of all, reach out to your local school district and just take a look, if you will, window shop through their websites to see what they're doing. Sometimes they won't even realize that they're doing great STEM things, and they won't brand it, if you will, as that. Whereas some of the places that do, let's say, Project Lead the Way, which is a great STEM program for all kinds of engineering, computer science, health services, they will be happy to show that. Find out from your community, what are they doing STEM-wise. It's very possible that the Department of Education could have a list of STEM sites that are maybe governor's centers. And that's another cool thing about it, is a STEM center can be including multiple localities, especially that are rural, that have hard to fill teaching positions, but multiple counties could come together and create several sections, if you will, of welding or agricultural or nursing. That's the beauty of it. That's still STEM in action.
I love it. I mean, we have ag here where we're at in New Mexico, a lot of agriculture. So there's a lot of agricultural opportunities. There's actually a lot of different opportunities here in New Mexico. We've got Los Alamos National Labs. We've got the Air Force bases. We've got Sandia National Labs. So, it's not that it can't happen in your own backyard, everybody. So, you know what, Erin, you're amazing at all that you do. I'm excited for all the different programs that we're trying to work on and collaborate with each other as well, and via STEM or education, and trying to inspire the youth. And everyone that's out there right now that's been a part of this, Bernadette, everyone else, Gilbert, Jen, and keep those comments coming even after we're not live. Please, let's inspire each other to bring a positive growth to our youth, to our community, and to ourselves, and to our internal environment, and to everything that's out there, because we do it internally within ourselves first, and then therefore we can go out and help everyone else. But Erin, thank you so much for being on here on Enlightened Circles today, this evening. Bring a whole new energy into our Enlightened Circles of how we can enlighten ourselves through education, and how we can help inspire and enlighten the youth in their education, so that therefore from there they can continue to shine in all that they do for their future. So thank you for being here, and I look forward to having you here next week as well, Wednesday, 12 p.m. Eastern time, everybody. Erin Smith, author of The Blank Check, Dr. Erin Smith, author of The Blank Check. Please check out his website if there's something else that you would like to be looking at. Where do people find the book, The Blank Check, as well, just before we jump off here?
So the book is really available at any major sites, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and just look up Blank Check. What would you do if you could reinvent public schools? And pick a copy up, and hopefully it'll draw your imagination and work with your community, and maybe making it a whole new level of opportunity for your kids.
Well, and here in my local community, our friend Gilbert and Jen just placed it up that Blenheim Middle School has a STEM program. So, it is in small rural communities as well. It's everywhere. So everybody just keep inspiring all that you do as well for yourselves, and that your enlightened circles might continue to be enlightened in every single way, every single day. And we'll catch you all here tomorrow. If you guys want to come back on, I'll be on just shortly in about 5 minutes on the curiosity theory, where we're going to be talking with Martin Lopez and 2 other guests as well, where we're going to be talking about why do people lie? So if you're wanting to get into that conversation, join us right here. I'll be sharing it, streaming it live here just shortly. Why do people lie? I'll be a guest on there. And that's important too, right? And I think that things like programs like STEM and everything else bring us into that foundation. So we're not lying as much. We're not doing all these different things. And we do go ahead and further in life because we are more secure. So we'll be taking that back into consideration next week when Erin is on with Migrate Your Mindset at 12 p.m. Eastern. And catch us tomorrow with Sarah Ross again on burnout. We're going to be discussing burnout at 12 p.m. Eastern time here on Enlightened Circles with Migrate Your Mindset. Erin, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody else, for being a part of this discussion this evening. If you need to, please get a hold of Erin, erinsmithphd.com/blank-check. You guys check out his book. It's an amazing book, and inspire yourself to dream about what would you do if you had a blank check for this education system. Lots of love to every single one of you. Erin, all my gratitude. Thank you again.
Thanks. Really appreciate you having me today.
Bye, guys.